when a cleaner's son, age 12, yelled, "Don't get in." The COS's incredible response changed everything. In the heart of a bustling suburban neighborhood, 12-year-old Danny stood by his father, his heart pounding like a drum. They were cleaning the glass entrance of a shiny office building, watching as the world of the affluent swirled around them. The chatter of businessmen, the scent of expensive cologne, and the gleam of luxury cars filled the air. Danny's father worked tirelessly, a hard-working janitor whose back ached after long hours, and Danny felt the weight of the world on his small shoulders. He often wondered if anyone noticed the man behind the mop, the one who sacrificed so much for their family. Then it happened. A luxury SUV glided to a stop, dust twisting in the warm air like a scene from a film. The CO, all tailored suits and polished shoes, stepped out. Danny's chest tightened as he observed the dismissive glare dropped like a stone on the common workers around him. Danny glanced at his father, who shrank under the spotlight, eyes lowered to the ground. A wave of anger surged in Danny, a fierce protectiveness for the man who was his hero, yet unrecognized. "Don't get in," he shouted, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. Time froze. The sun seemed to dim for a moment as all eyes fell on the brave boy. People whispered. A mixture of admiration and shock filled the air. Danny's heart raced like a speeding car, his words echoing with a cry for justice that reverberated against the polished marble of a world built on privilege. The CO turned, caught off guard. In that split second, the crowd held its breath, not just for Danny, but for a moment that could transcend their worlds. Those thick walls of socioeconomic divide seemed to waver, just for an instant. The boy stood defiantly, unwavering, a fountain of innocence and raw truth, and there was a flicker in the CO's eyes. Memories stormed back, a younger version of himself, defending his own struggling family against the tides of indifference. The pressure of climbing from the depths nearly tore at him in that moment. Instead of rebuking Danny's outburst, he hesitated, a shared struggle glimmering in his gaze. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. But as silence enveloped them like a thick fog, uncertainty loomed. Could they truly bridge an abyss built from years of misunderstanding and prejudice? The murmurs of the crowd undulated. Some raised Danny up, while others branded him foolish. Parents in the nearby playground held their breath, kids momentarily paused on swings, and the local diner's booth by the window felt the weight of thrill and suspense. Danny stood there, a young boy on the precipice of destiny, and the CO, a man at a crossroads of realization. Could this bold moment spark a change in their lives, or would the harsh realities of the world around them snuff out this spark of connection? Yet, here they were, on the cusp of something monumental, ready to confront the shadows of their pasts. The street breathed in their tension, as hope and fear intermingled. The journey ahead promised to confront the moral maze of their existence, a chance for understanding in a fractured world. Would they step into the future together or drift back to the sidelines? The CO blinked, confusion mingling with intrigue. He knew he could easily brush off the boy's outburst. Society had taught him to look away, to focus on his world of suits and boardrooms. But there was something in the boy's stance that stirred a long-buried sense of empathy. Danny's small frame stood bold against the backdrop of privilege, and at that moment, he appeared larger than life. The crowd held its breath, eyes darting between the boy and the man who seemed to wield all the power. Wind swirled around them, carrying whispers and anticipation. In that heartbeat of hesitation, the silence transformed into a collective curiosity. What would the CEO do? Would he retaliate? Would he step back into a world where such voices didn't exist? Danny felt his heart race. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as he challenged the man before him, though deep down, fear slithered in. What if no one cared? What if his words fell flat? He stole another glance at his father, whose eyes sparkled with a mix of pride and worry. Every ounce of Danny's being wanted to protect him, to remind him that he was not invisible. "Listen, I know you don't see us," Danny started, his voice trembling yet firm. "But we work hard. My dad works hard. He deserves respect. We all do. You may not think we matter, but we do." The murmurs surged in the crowd like waves crashing against a shore. Some nodded thoughtfully, others frowned in discomfort at the raw truth unfolding right before them. The weight of Danny's words hung heavy in the air, illuminating the real struggle beneath the glossy veneer of success. In that place of discomfort, the CO's gaze softened. A shift began, something almost perceptible, as if a door cracked open inside him. It was a little spark, a reminder of all the sacrifices made on the climb to success, the friends left behind, the moments of doubt, the desperate fight to rise above a life of struggle. "Your father," the CEO inhaled, "he's a hard worker. He deserves to be seen." The words hung limply, almost ashamed. I should apologize," he stammered, glancing at the onlookers before turning his gaze back to Danny, a hint of vulnerability in his eyes. The atmosphere thickened as everyone sensed a shift. The moment transformed into something more profound. This boy had courage and strength to confront a man who had stayed above it all for so long. What could this connection mean for their worlds? The grief and hope locked in the gaze of the CEO matched Danny's own tears. Both sensed they were at a turning point. Fathers and sons, rich and poor, all searching for their worth and looking for a hand to reach out and bridge the gap. The moment felt electric, a fragile line drawn between their individual stories, begging to be woven into something greater. Then, amid the collective anticipation, a voice broke through from the edge of the crowd. "Make it right, Mr. CEO. You have the power." Danny's heart leaped. Could this be the beginning of something real? The CEO smiled tentatively, as if waking from a long slumber. "You're right. It's time for change for all of us." As he took a step towards Danny, the crowd gasped. Would the CEO step beyond the barriers he had built? Would they truly unite their worlds? For Danny, the chance of a lifetime hung in the balance. This wasn't just about recognition anymore. It was about transformation. But the question lingered: what would it take for the CEO to fully embrace this shift? As he stood poised at this juncture, they were both aware that the journey had just begun. Would it lead to understanding, or would the comfort of old habits pull them apart? As the last rays of sunlight dimmed, their paths intertwined with uncertainty. Would they find the courage to redefine their futures together? The air crackled with tension as the CEO stepped closer to Danny, a quiet determination taking shape in his posture. The murmur of the crowd faded, replaced by the sound of their shared breaths. What had begun as a confrontation now felt like the dawn of a fragile alliance. The gap between their worlds shimmered with possibility, yet loomed heavy with doubt. Danny swallowed hard, apprehension coiling within him. The hopeful glimmer in the CO's eyes felt both exciting and terrifying. What would happen next? Would he truly act on his words, or recede back into the safety of his high-rise world? "What do you want me to do?" the CEO finally asked, his voice soft but clear. The question hung like a challenge, ripe with the potential for change. Danny's heart raced. He hadn't expected the man to ask. I want you to start seeing us," he replied, the passion in his voice growing stronger. "Not just my dad, but everyone like him. We work hard, so hard every day. You can do something. You can change how people see us." A ripple of emotion coursed through the crowd. It was a raw moment, unfiltered by pretense. Many in the audience felt the swell of pride for Danny, standing tall in the face of such authority. Others mulled over the reality he so courageously expressed. The CO's face shifted as he considered Danny's words. "I would if I held a town hall," he suggested, surprising even himself. "What if I invited people from all walks of life to share their stories? To talk about their struggles and their dreams?" The skeptical voices of the crowd slowly began to shift into whispers of approval. Danny's eyes widened. "That essay start," he explained, a rush of buoyant hope flowing through him. What seemed like a dream began to feel tangible, rooted in reality. But doubt lingered in the back of Danny's mind. Would anyone really show up? Would the stories be heard? The wealth of broken trust hung heavily over the crowd. How many had tried to speak before only to be silenced? "Can you promise to listen?" Danny asked, his voice earnest, carrying a weight that demanded a commitment. "We just want to be acknowledged, like we matter." The CO took a deep breath, the weight of that promise clearly settling onto his broad shoulders. "I promise," he replied firmly. "I'll put something in motion. This will not be just another empty gesture." The crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and skepticism, a collective heartbeat throbbing with a mix of anticipation and hopefulness. Danny glanced at his father, who stood beaming with pride, wiping tears from his eyes. In that fleeting moment, buried fears gave way to the excitement of possibility. But just then, a voice interrupted the unfolding joy. "Actions speak louder than words, Mr. CO. Will you really follow through?" The older man had gruffness in his presence, a hard-won skepticism caked into his lines of weariness. Danny felt his heart plummet, aware that every hopeful declaration now seemed subject to scrutiny. The CO's smile faltered slightly, but he regained his composure. "Together," he declared, urgency creeping into his tone. "We'll do this together. It starts now." As he turned back to Danny, a moment of understanding clicked between them. The CO might have opened the door to change, but the road ahead looked long and winding. Danny nodded, feeling the world shift ever so slightly, the potential of tomorrow hanging in the air. Would this connection truly lead to a transformation that would bridge their divided worlds? The crowd buzzed with curiosity, hearts and hopes intertwined. The echo of possibility danced on the edge of their consciousness, though the lingering question remained, could this spark truly ignite the flames of real change? As shadows lengthened under the fading sun, everyone knew that the journey was just beginning. What would they discover about themselves along the way? The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the horizon with hues of orange and purple. Each passing moment felt heavy with unspoken dreams. Danny stood among the crowd, the anticipation finally boiling over into murmurs of excitement, doubt, laughter, and hope. "Did you hear him? A town hall meeting," whispered a woman to her friend, eyes bright with enthusiasm. Others followed suit, sharing cautious optimism about what this could mean for their community. As the CO stepped back, scanning the faces around him, Danny felt a surge of energy. He watched the man's expression soften, realizing he might have stepped outside of his comfort zone for the first time. For Danny, this was nothing short of monumental. Yet, the question echoed in his mind once more: would the CO truly follow through? "Let us not let this moment fade," the CO commanded, a newfound authority igniting his voice. "I want to hear from each of you. I want to know your stories." The murmur shifted, uncertainty brimming over with curiosity. Danny's father, still teary-eyed, moved closer to his son, squeezing his arm. The pride was palpable. The dream that had festered in their hearts for so long was beginning to bloom. But then, a voice sliced through the atmosphere again. "And what will you do with our stories?" A man shouted from the back, a visible sheen of doubt in his eyes. "How will you hold yourself accountable?" The crowd fell silent, drawn into the moment, as they collectively held their breaths. The CO's gaze flickered, then steeled itself. "With transparency," he replied firmly, his voice unwavering. "I'll report back to all of you. I'll make sure your voices are heard not just as a checklist, but as real change in our community." Danny watched as skepticism slowly morphed into cautious hope. It was just a start, but it was a crack in the barrier that had kept their worlds apart. "Let us take the first step now," the CEO continued, his eyes brightening with purpose. "Let us gather some names, experiences. I want volunteers to help organize this town hall. We can hold it next week. Who wants to join?" Hands shot up across the gathering like wildflowers bursting through concrete. Each raised hand symbolized a tiny glimmer of hope, revealing people ready to share their lives to build bridges where walls had stood for too long. Danny raised his hand too, heart thudding loud enough for everyone to hear. Amidst the excitement, a realization struck him: it wasn't just about this event. It was about the ripple effects it would create. Suddenly, Danny distinctly felt the heavy weight of expectation, both from his community and from himself. As names filled the air, Danny leaned towards the CEO. "And what about the follow-up? What if things don't change after?" he asked, mindful of everyone watching with bated breath. The smile faded from the CEO's face, revealing the weight of the commitment he'd made. "Then we keep pushing. I promise you that." The crowd erupted into applause mixed with hopeful laughter, yet the question of genuine change still hung in the air. They were all in this together, but the path was shrouded in uncertainty. As they began to disperse, excitement buzzed from group to group, but shadows of disbelief lingered. Danny and his father lingered, exchanging glances filled with unsureness about what the next week would bring. Still, Danny couldn't shake a feeling deep inside, a tingling sense of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of something bigger. But as the crowd began to break apart, Danny noticed the older man from earlier, still frowning, arms crossed. Would everyone feel that same spark? Or would doubt snuff it out before it fully ignited? The question echoed in his mind as he walked away. The journey had started, but what awaited them would challenge everything they believed in. Would they find the strength to turn hope into reality, or would the community's past hinder their future? Only time would tell. Danny's heart raced as they crossed the empty lot that had once been filled with laughter and family gatherings. The sun slowly dipped behind the buildings, casting long shadows that felt like they were reaching out, warning him of what was to come. He wanted to relish the moment, bask in the afterglow of hope, but the weight of uncertainty pressed down hard. His father walked beside him, a tight grip on his shoulder. "Do you think they'll really listen this time?" he asked quietly, concern etching lines on his face. "I hope so," Danny replied, though his voice wavered. "What if they don't? What if this is just more talk? Then we make sure they do." His father's words were soft yet firm, filled with a determination that flickered like a flame. Danny admired that fire, but doubt kept sneaking in like shadows creeping over the ground. They approached the park, where the scent of warm pretzels wafted through the air, awakening memories of happier times. Children played, their laughter ringing through the trees. Yet, the carnival atmosphere felt misleading against the backdrop of their struggles. Sarcasm slipped into Danny's throat like a bitter pill. "Guess this is a good time for a festival, huh?" Danny scowled, glaring at the hodgepodge of events that felt strangely irrelevant now. "Maybe it's what we need," his father said, a slight smile tugging at his lips. A moment to breathe before diving into what lies ahead. As they sat on a bench, the vibe shifted, and Danny's thoughts turned to the upcoming town hall meeting. He was nervous about sharing his story. Would it resonate? Would anyone even care? Facing the crowd felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into swirling uncertainty. "What will you say?" his father asked suddenly, breaking through Danny's fog of anxiety. "I guess. I just want them to know it's not just about economic growth or profits," Danny murmured, the words gathering courage as he spoke. "There are lives behind the struggles. Real feelings. Real dreams. You're speaking from the heart. That is powerful. His dad's encouragement ignited a spark deep inside. The voices around them grew louder, people assembling as more families arrived for the festivities. Flashes of color and vibrant smiles brought an uplifting energy, but beneath it all lay an undercurrent of skepticism, a reminder of the wounds too slow to heal. Among the crowd, faces began to turn toward the stage, where the CEO would soon share updates about the community's future. Danny's pulse quickened. As the murmurs faded and anticipation filled the air, he leaned back, searching for the older man's familiar face. The man was still there, arms crossed, eyes narrowing in doubt. "Look," Danny whispered to his dad, pointing discreetly. "What about him? He doesn't believe." "We can't change everyone's mind overnight," his father replied. "But we can try." "Try how?" Danny sighed, feeling frustration bubbling just below the surface. What if he hears a story that moves him? Maybe that's the first step. Maybe he sees how it connects to his own life. The idea stuck with Danny, each syllable blooming with possibilities. Perhaps the heart had the power to resonate beyond walls built from doubt. Perhaps, if they really opened up, they could puncture through the gelid silence around them. As the CEO approached the microphone, anticipation swirled in the air like a captivating melody. The buzz of voices softened, and even the older man's expression momentarily shifted, scrutinizing attentively for what would come next. This is it, Danny thought, his heart hammering loudly in his chest. It was not just about speaking out. It was about making a connection that could change everything. But would that connection be strong enough to thaw the ice around doubt? As hope mingled with trepidation in his gut, Danny leaned forward, fully focused on what lay ahead. The crowd took a deep collective breath, and for a moment, it felt as if they were all part of one heartbeat. And just then, as the CEO began to speak, Danny noticed the older man leaning forward in his seat, the corners of his mouth unclenching slightly. Could this be the first step towards belief in something greater? Only the words spoken in moments to come would reveal the truth. The CEO cleared his throat, the sound reverberating through the gathering crowd. He opened with a polished smile and a confident tone, but for Danny, the words felt rehearsed. He expected the usual buzzwords about progress and community investments, but instead, the CEO paused. "I want to talk about resilience today," he began, his voice steady. The crowd shifted in their seats, leaning in. "I've heard your stories of struggle and hope. And it's time we listen, not just to the numbers, but to the hearts behind them." Danny's breath hitched. He exchanged an uncertain glance with his father, who nodded encouragingly. Perhaps this was more than just fluff. Sometimes, we forget that change doesn't come from a plan, but from understanding the human experience. I've met families who've faced closures, job losses, and heartaches. You are the soul of our community. Each word from the CEOs seemed to strike a chord in the hearts around them, resonating against the backdrop of uncertainty. Danny's thoughts raced. The older man in the audience still sat stiffly, but his brows furrowed. There was a flicker of recognition there, like a small crack in a stone wall. "Stories speak louder than statistics," the CEO continued, "and we need to hear them. Just like some of you have bravely shared your battles, I want you to feel that you matter. You deserve a community that listens." Encouraged by the CEO's words, Danny felt a surge of determination. The crowd was engaged, hanging on to the man's every word as if they were each a lifeline thrown out. What if this was the moment that made a difference? In that instant, Danny's nerves began to fade. He thought of all the nights spent rehearsing his own story in the mirror, practicing the emotions he wanted to convey. He wanted to show everyone what it truly felt like to be on the edge of losing everything that mattered. Realizing this was his chance, Danny turned to his father, determination set in his eyes. "I can do it. I want to go up there." His father's face lit up, pride radiating through the lines of worry. "Are you sure?" "You don't have to." "I do. I need to. They need to hear me." Danny felt a warmth spread through him, a growing belief that he could connect with them, especially that skeptical older man. "All right, then," his father said, gripping his arm tightly. "Just speak from your heart." As the CEO wrapped up his speech, the crowd erupted into applause, and Danny's heart thundered at the thought of stepping onto that stage. He clenched his fists, willing his shaky excitement to settle. The next moment came closer, but then, just as he stood, ready to rise, the CEO turned to the audience again, inviting others to share their stories. "Is there anyone else who wants to speak?" In that stillness before chaos, Danny hesitated, fear stealing back in. What if what he said wasn't enough? What if his voice broke? The thought sent a shudder through him. Without realizing it, he glanced again at the older man, whose features now softened in contemplation. A spark of curiosity glinted in his eyes. Maybe, just maybe, Danny's story could bridge the gap. Just speak, he reminded himself. They need to hear it. But would he find the courage buried deep inside him? The weight of the moment pressed against his chest. Could he grasp this opportunity to bring the voices of the unheard to the forefront, or would he retreat into silence? As the silence deepened, and the moment slipped through his fingers, new doubts surfaced like shadows encroaching on the light. Danny took a deep breath, ready to confront that vulnerability within. Was he really prepared to stand up and risk it all? With the eyes of the crowd now upon him, he took a small step forward, heart pounding, uncertainty lingering in the air. What awaited him at the edge of that stage could change everything. And just as he moved, a resounding cheer broke out, igniting a fire in his spirit. Would this cheer propel him to speak, or shrink him back into silence? The only certainty was that a choice had to be made right here, right now. Danny felt the cheer pulse through him, like electricity, igniting something long hidden. He took another step. The audience energy surrounded him, swirling and vibrant. He wiped his sweaty palms on his jeans. The spotlight felt like a beacon guiding him forward. He could see faces, concerned, curious. His father's smile anchored him as he spotted it among the crowd. Taking a deep breath, he stepped to the edge of the stage. "Hi," he stammered, his voice wavering. "I'm Danny. I just want to share my story." A murmur traveled through the crowd. The CEO nodded encouragingly. Danny took another breath, finding strength in the supportive gaze of familiar faces, the warmth of hope enveloping him. "A few months ago, everything changed for my family. My dad lost his job. I was scared." His voice cracked, but he pushed on. "I watched my parents struggle. I saw them worried and fighting to keep things together. They didn't give up, even when it felt like we were losing everything." The older man's brows furrowed deeper, and Danny noticed him shift forward slightly. Was he listening? "I remember one night, we sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes after we had to sell things we couldn't keep. I felt my mom's arm around me, and she said, 'We'll get through this because we have each other.'" That line had echoed in Danny's mind. It was a small spark of light in the darkness. He felt the shift in the audience, a collective intake of breath. He could see heads nodding, tears glistening in the corners of eyes. Things didn't magically get better overnight. "Sometimes, I thought we'd never be okay again. But I learned that being together, hearing each other's stories, made us stronger. It gave us hope." He locked eyes with the CEO, who seemed transformed, fully focused on him, absorbing every word. Danny pressed on, determination replacing fear. "I want to be a voice for my friends, for the kids who feel alone. We all have stories, and we matter. I matter." The crowd fell silent, hanging on his words, and in that quiet, a gentle courage washed over him, urging him to speak louder. "We can't wait for someone else to fix things. It's up to us to lift each other up. A ripple of soft applause began, hesitant at first but growing. Encouragement coursed through him, a wave he could ride. I might just be a kid, but I know that together we can make a difference. I believe we can turn this around. If we lift each other up, we can be resilient. As he finished, a powerful cheer erupted. It enveloped him like a warm blanket, drowning out the last of his doubts. He stood taller, the sound wrapping around him, giving him energy, strength. The CEO stepped forward, his expression one of admiration. Thank you, Danny. You've reminded us all today of the power of our stories, and the importance of coming together. Your voice matters. Danny felt a sense of pride wash over him, fueling that newfound energy deep inside. He stood there, basking in the moment. He'd done it. He had spoken from the heart. As the applause continued, he caught sight of the older man again, now visibly moved, tears tracing down his cheeks. Could it be? Did Danny touch him after all? Then, something unexpected happened. Danny noticed a hand raised at the back of the crowd. Another voice was ready to share. Who else would step forward? Would they add their story to the growing chorus of hope? The moment felt electric, waiting for the next connection to spark anew. The crowd parted slightly as another kid, maybe 12 or 13, pushed through. His face was flushed, determination evident in the way he held himself. Danny's heart raced. Would his words carry the same weight? The boy stepped into the spotlight, standing tall, despite the quiver in his voice, as he began to speak. Hi, everyone, I'm Alex, he introduced himself, eyes scanning the audience like he was searching for something familiar amidst the sea of faces. I don't really know what to say, but I think we all feel lost sometimes. Danny's breath caught. It was a vulnerability he recognized, one he had just shared with them all. A wisp of encouragement danced around the room, luring everyone in closer. My mom works 2 jobs. I barely see her, Alex admitted, his voice softening. Sometimes, she is so tired, she just falls asleep on the couch when she gets home. I don't want her to feel like she has to do it all alone. It's hard. I wish I could do something to help her. The audience watched, silence thickening as they absorbed Alex's story. He clenched his fists, clearly battling the weight of emotions threatening to spill out. But I'm scared too, he stammered, the strength cracking, because we don't have everything we used to. And I worry every day about what happens if she gets hurt or needs a day off. Who will take care of us? Danny could hear a few quiet gasps in the audience. The connection between them was palpable. The shared fear, the echo of struggle, hovered in the air as if they'd all been waiting for him to say this. I remember something she told me. No matter how hard it gets, we will always be there for each other. That made me strong, but I don't know if that's enough anymore. He paused, taking a deep breath as tears glimmered in his eyes. What if I can't be enough? What if we don't find a way out? Danny's chest tightened. He wanted to reach out, to let Alex know he wasn't alone in those thoughts, that they were all standing together in this moment. Suddenly, from the front, the CEO stepped forward, a look of concern mixing with admiration on his face. You are enough, Alex. Sharing your story takes tremendous courage, he said, his voice steady and warm. It's about coming together and leaning on each other. You've given us all a glimpse of your strength. Alex nodded, wiping away a tear. The audience clapped, a soft round of applause that quickly grew stronger, wrapped in empathy. In that moment, hope unfurled like a blossom, reaching out. Danny watched, a swell of pride rising within him. This was just his moment. They were all sharing their hearts, facing their fears together. He could see people nodding, wiping their own eyes, as this powerful wave of connection cascaded throughout the room. But then, a small girl, no older than 10, stood up in the front row, her small hand trembling as she met Danny's gaze. She looked scared, but determined. I want to share too. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted again. What would this little girl say? Would her story draw them even closer? Or would it reveal a different kind of struggle they hadn't yet seen? Danny's heart raced at the possibilities. Would her voice ignite yet another spark? The little girl took a deep breath, her eyes alight with a mixture of fear and resolve. As she looked around, Danny could see the crowd leaning in, curious and supportive, eager to hear what she had to say. She brushed a few strands of hair behind her ear, her small hands steadying on the podium. "My name is Lily," she said softly, but her voice grew stronger as she continued. "I know what it's like to feel scared. I live with my dad. My mom left when I was little, and I don't remember much about her. Sometimes, I wish I did." A hush fell over the crowd, her words hanging in the air like the heavy silence before a rainstorm. Danny could see the tension in her small frame as she fought the wave of emotions threatening to surface. "My dad works hard, just like Alex's mom. He cleans offices. He is out all night, and when he comes home, he is so tired. Sometimes I hear him crying when he thinks I'm asleep." Lily paused, forcing the words out, struggling against tears that shimmered in her eyes. "I wish he didn't have to. I want him to be happy, but it's hard for him." Danny's heart ached for her. It was a pain he knew all too well, a reflection of his own fears and worries. "It's just the two of us, and sometimes I feel lonely. Like I'm invisible when I go to school. I wish I could tell my friends, but I'm scared. What if they don't understand? What if they know I don't have a normal family?" She looked around, eyes searching for compassion in the audience. "But I know we're not alone. We have each other even if we don't always see it." There was a pause, and Danny could feel the atmosphere swelling with empathy. He realized the room was holding its breath, waiting. It felt like a shared heartbeat stretching across the distance, binding everyone together in their collective struggles. Then Lily began to smile, a tentative yet brave light blooming across her face. "But my dad always tells me to dream big. He says that I can be anything I want. I believe him." Her words empowered the audience, a beacon cutting through the darkness. "I don't know where life will take us. But we have to keep trying. We have to believe in something better." The audience erupted into heartfelt applause, the sound rising and falling like waves crashing against the shore. Even Danny's eyes stung, a bittersweet blend of sorrow and inspiration flooding through him. The CO stepped forward again, seemingly moved by Lily's words. "Thank you for your bravery, Lily. You remind us all that no matter our circumstances, hope is the fuel that drives us forward. You are a champion already, and together, we can support families like yours." Cheers erupted a second time, and the connection grew stronger. Danny felt electric. He was ignited by the sheer power of vulnerability and courage filling the room. Yet amidst the overwhelming sense of community, a shadow loomed. What if not everyone there felt the same hope? What if beneath the applause was an undercurrent of doubt? Danny's heart quickened again as he noticed a figure slumping in the back, arms crossed tightly, face obscured. What did they feel? Did they have a story to share too? As Danny scanned the room, he wondered if the next voice, wherever it might come from, would echo their struggles or reveal something entirely unexpected. As the applause for Lily's heartfelt story faded, a palpable energy filled the air, a mix of hope and shared determination. The eyes of the crowd sparkled with recognition, and for the first time, it felt like they were truly connected. Danny gazed around him, taking in the faces filled with warmth and understanding. Each individual had a story. They carried burdens just as heavy as his own. Yet, they stood united, like a family woven together by their experiences. He felt emboldened, the weight of uncertainty lifting slightly. "Who will go next?" The CEO called once more, his voice rich with sincerity. "We want to hear your stories, your truths. This is your moment." His gaze swept across the crowd, searching for the next brave soul, But before anyone could respond, Danny noticed the older man from earlier, the skeptical one, with arms crossed tight. His expression hadn't changed, still clinging to doubt, while the rest of the crowd had transformed. What did he think of all this? Just then, a tremor shook through the crowd as another voice broke the silence. "I want to speak," called a young woman, stepping forward with a determined stride. The crowd shifted to make space for her. She couldn't have been much older than Danny, but the conviction in her eyes was recognizable. "I'm Sarah," she began, her voice shaking just a little at first. "I grew up in a neighborhood like many of yours. My dad was a factory worker, and my mom worked multiple shifts just to make sure we had food on the table. But I didn't know how bad things were until I watched my friends struggle too. I thought we were the only ones." Danny leaned closer, heart pounding in anticipation. Would she too break down or share something profound? "Until I started volunteering at the local food bank, I lived in a bubble. I thought everyone was like me, just trying to get by. But then, I saw children without enough to eat, parents anxious about buying medication, and families barely keeping their heads above water. I realized there are so many people fighting battles we can't see." The crowd hung on to her every word, the rawness of her experience drawing them in. "But through that," she said, voice stronger now, "I found resilience, the kind we all share. When we help each other, we become stronger. I made it my mission to lift others up, and now I believe we need to support one another to create real change." Danny's heart swelled. She was voicing the exact mission they had all fought for. As she finished, a ripple of applause erupted anew. And as the clapping filled the air, Danny's gaze fell upon the older man. He leaned forward slightly, brows furrowed, but for the first time, he looked interested. Then, from the back of the crowd, another voice rang out, this one deeper, gruff, yet it carried weight. "I guess I'll go," the older man from earlier said, rising to his feet and breaking through his own reluctance. "My name is Tom, and I've lived my whole life in this town." Danny's breath hitched. What would he say? "I've seen the struggles, the heartaches. I've lived them," he confessed, his tone raw but honest. "But I did what everyone around me did. I focused on myself, on my bubbles of comfort. When you're stuck in survival mode, it's easy to overlook what is right in front of you." The crowd leaned in, enthralled. Listening to these young people, it's a wake-up call. I have a daughter who has grown up in a world that prioritizes wealth over humanity, and I never taught her to see beyond the surface. I carried my own burdens and shut my eyes to the struggles of others. But I realize now, we're all in this together. You've reminded me of the heart of this community, and the true worth of lifting each other up." Danny felt a rush of acknowledgement sweep through him. Tom took a deep breath, unsteady yet filled with sincerity. "It's time for me to do better. I want to help however I can. I see you now, and I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner." The audience erupted in cheers, a tangible wave of triumph dancing through the air. Danny spotted tears in Sarah's eyes, echoed in others around him. For every shared burden, there was also healing. Standing on the edge of the stage, Danny felt hope blossom within him like a flower emerging from concrete. They were finding their voices together. In that moment, he understood. It wasn't just about one person making a change. It was about the ripple effect unleashed through connection, vulnerability, and determination. Each story ignited something new, a bright flame that couldn't be extinguished. And just like that, a profound realization dawned on him that this was only the beginning. As people took the stage to share their stories, one by one, his own heart filled with anticipation. Whatever awaited them beyond this day, it was no longer about remaining silent. They would speak out, share their pain and dreams, and in doing so, they would transform their world into one that recognized every voice, every life, every story. The sun dipped below the horizon, and with every word exchanged, the darkness fell away, making room for the rising light of hope. As the final applause echoed into the twilight, Danny glanced over at his father, who beamed with pride. They were home, they belonged here, and they were ready to create a community that truly listened. In the depths of his heart, Danny knew, bridging the gaps had begun. He glanced toward the future, impatient for the next chance to rise again and speak. This was just the beginning of an awakening, a celebration of resilience, a bond forged in determination. And it lay in every hand that was raised, every story yet to be told. So, if you're feeling inspired like Danny and his community, don't just sit back, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and support us in sharing these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible transformation. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to feel this wave of hope and change in their lives. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of keeping this community alive.